Sonic the Hedgehog, one of the most recognizable and beloved video game characters of all time, and many consider his early games to be some of the finest ever crafted. Nowadays, things aren't quite so good.
Elise!
Fans lament for the glory days, and some still hold out hope that they might someday return. But where did it all go wrong? To answer that, we'll have to go back to the beginning. Okay, not that far. Back in the late 80s, Sega was still trying to establish dominance in the East where Nintendo was king. Sega's Master System, while popular in Europe, never got the foothold needed to become a serious competitor to the 8-bit crown. In 1988, Sega released the Mega Drive to compete against the NES. However, NEC's PC engine was already well established in the 16-bit realm in Japan and kept Sega in a distant third. Then Sega turned its attention to North America. The Mega Drive name was changed to Genesis because of trademark conflict, and also to represent a new beginning for the company. New Sega of America CEO Michael Katz established a two-point plan to build cells in America. The first was to take Nintendo head-on and advertise the Genesis as the true home arcade experience.
Arcade screen left, Genesis screen right. If they look the same, you've answered correctly.
Dave, we got your golden axe.
Or get Genesis by Sega. We bring the arcade experience home.
The second was to create a library of instantly recognizable titles, which used the names and likenesses of celebrities and athletes, such as Pat Riley basketball, Arnold Palmer tournament golf, James Buster Douglas knockout boxing, Joe Montana football, Tommy Lasorda baseball, Mario Lemieux hockey, and Michael Jackson's Moonwalker. Even then, the Genesis still had a hard time toppling the Nintendo juggernaut that was the NES. In mid-1990, Sega replaced Katz with Tom Kalinske. Even though Kalinske didn't know much about video games, he surrounded himself with industry-savvy advisors and came up with his own new 4-point plan. Cut the price of the console,
I like Genesis, and it costs a lot less.
establish a US-based development team to focus on creating games tailored for the American market, continue with the aggressive marketing established by his predecessor,
Genesis.
Does.
Genesis.
Does.
Genesis.
Does.
Genesis.
Does. Free.
Does.
What Nintendo?
and replace Altered Beast, the original Genesis pack-in game, with a new title called Sonic the Hedgehog. Sega bet it all on the blue blur by making him the new official Sega mascot, replacing some monkey thing. With Mario already well established within the video game culture of the 80s and heading into the 90s, Sega needed to come up with their own mascot to compete with the middle-aged mustachioed plumber. And that's when Sega Research and Development came up with Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic was pitch perfect with bringing Sega into the 90s, when everything was like totally rad, man, and everyone had attitude.
They're like totally rad, man.
So let's jump right in and take a look at the game that started it all. Before we get started, quick trivia. What was the first game to have the appearance of Sonic the Hedgehog?
And wrong.
Sonic's first appearance was actually in an arcade game called Radmobile, which came out 2 months before Sonic the Hedgehog hit the Sega Genesis. You can see the Sonic sprite dangling from the rearview mirror of the car that you drive. The story of Sonic the Hedgehog follows the last human on Earth named Dr. Ivo Robotnik.
My name is Dr. Ivo Robotnik. My name is Dr. Eggman. No!
As he attempts to create a utopia by turning everything into robots and machinery, thus ending world hunger and death and disease. Then some blue hedgehog comes in and wrecks his shit. Okay, I guess that's just one way you could interpret the story. The great thing about this game is its simplicity. Mario games have all these power-ups that give Mario special abilities and changes the gameplay a bit. Sonic just runs and jumps. Literally, that's it. And even though the Sega Genesis controller has 3 buttons, they all just have one function: jump. Now that's not to say Sonic is completely devoid of power-ups. There are a couple here, and they manage to still remain simple and don't really change the gameplay all that much. The first is the iconic shield, which just lets you keep your rings if you happen to get hit. And the second is your standard invincibility, complete with awesome music that definitely rivals the star music from Mario. The controls here are very tight. Sonic does exactly what you tell him to, and any sudden or accidental deaths are usually the player's fault. You can adjust your speed and direction a bit in the air. And while Sonic can't stop on a dime, changing directions isn't hard at all. Plus you get the cool animation and the tire screech when he tries to stop. In addition to the tight controls, this game also has an easy to understand set of physics. Running downhill is faster than running uphill. Certain sections need momentum. The angle of the ground you are standing on determines the angle of your jump. And rolling into a Sonic spin will give you more speed than you know what to do with. These nuances give this game its unique gameplay style. And unfortunately seems to have been completely forgotten in the more recent games.
When does he do this? I don't remember Sonic doing this in the original goddamn game. Look, what a fucking speedster. He's just walking. He's just fucking walking.
In a similar fashion to Mario, Sonic has his own magically floating collectibles. Only this time it's rings instead of coins. The rings also have a bit more of a function here than the coins. Both give you an extra life when you collect 100 of them, but the rings act as a form of protection for Sonic. Get hit by an enemy or hazard, and you'll drop all of your rings in spectacular fashion, and you'll have to scramble to pick them back up. But as long as Sonic has at least one ring on him, he won't die. The exceptions to this rules, of course, are getting squished or touching the bottom of your TV screen. Luckily, the game does have a checkpoint system in case you die. Just run past these signposts and you'll restart the level at that point on your next life. Now, this game has two different ways to play. You can either just blast through each level and try to get the fastest time, or you can take your time and explore each level for more rings and extra lives hidden about. The exploration method is recommended if you want the true ending for the game, since you need to have at least 50 rings at the end of the level in order to reach the special stage, where you can get a Chaos Emerald, and you need all 6 Chaos Emeralds for the real ending. The special stages are pretty cool. They're equal parts creative, fun, and frustrating. Once you're there, you'll need to make your way to the room with the emerald and then chip away at the diamonds surrounding it in order to collect it. Keep in mind, those things that say goal are lying to you, and that is not your goal. Each zone is broken up into 3 acts, where the first 2 lead up to a fight with Robotnik in Act 3. Special zones can only be entered in Acts 1 and 2, so keep that in mind. Each battle with Robotnik is pretty unique, and each one has a pattern that's not too hard to figure out, with one infamous exception. The level designs are some of the best that the 16-bit generation has to offer. And the art style definitely makes the most out of the limited color palette of the Sega Genesis. The levels all have their own motif, and everything is clear and easy to see. Even the sprites are nice and big and detailed, and they stand out nicely from the background. The style even oozes over into the music. Each zone has its very own unique, catchy tune that fits the level like a glove. The one drawback of the 3-act structure is the music can get a little repetitive, especially in the longer levels later in the game, but it's never enough to make you reach for the mute button. Plus, the boss music is sufficiently epic. The reason the gameplay and level design gel so well together is actually the parts that slow you down. But I thought Sonic was all about speed. Well, yes, but it's that mixture of speed and slow that makes this such a great game. Learning when you can go fast and when you need to slow down to be more careful is what gives the game its charm. And the fact that you have control over his speed at all times makes it so much sweeter. Modern Sonic games have forgotten about that, Way too many sections where you just zoom from speed launcher to speed launcher while the camera pulls back and the game takes control away from you and you just watch. Interesting fact, the reason Sonic can't swim is because series creator Yuji Naka mistakenly thought that hedgehogs can't swim. And thus the disdain for every water level in every Sonic game was born. All in all, this is a great game. Sega was looking for something good enough to both compete with Mario and to drive console sales. They more than succeeded here and laid an excellent foundation for a beloved franchise. I give it an A+ out of 5.